The rain lashed against the windows of St. Michael's Hospital in New York City, its relentless rhythm filling the silence of the dimly lit halls. Thunder rumbled like a distant, unsteady heartbeat, reverberating through the sterile walls and flickering fluorescent lights. Nurse Emily Foster, a compassionate yet unyielding figure with over a decade of experience, peered out from behind the nurse's station, watching the storm unfold. There was an unusual tension in the air, something that made the usually calm Emily feel uneasy. Just as the clock struck midnight, the automatic glass doors slid open with a soft whoosh, and a gust of cold, wet air swept into the lobby. The staff braced against the draft, turning their attention to the entrance. But what entered through those doors was not a late-night emergency case or a distressed visitor. It was something no one could have prepared for, a full-grown lion, soaked by the rain, padding silently across the gleaming hospital floor. Panic rippled through the lobby like a shockwave. Patients gasped, nurses froze, and doctors stilled. Some of the hospital staff hurriedly moved back, murmuring in disbelief. But Emily remained where she was, her eyes locked onto the lion. The massive animal looked directly at her, as if seeking her out specifically. The lion's eyes were tired but purposeful, holding a wisdom and sadness that sent a shiver down her spine. Without taking her gaze off the lion, Emily noticed something else, a small bundle clasped delicately between its powerful jaws. It was wrapped in a tattered cloth, barely visible against the lion's golden mane. The lion paused, meeting her eyes once more before setting the bundle gently onto the floor, nudging it forward with its nose. Emily's heart raced. She had spent her life in a world of reason and science, but something about this moment felt almost mystical. Ignoring the warnings of her colleagues, she took a slow step forward. She could feel the fear and disbelief radiating from everyone around her, but something deep inside compelled her to approach the creature. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the soft rumble of thunder outside. She wasn't sure if she was speaking to the lion, herself, or the strange bundle on the floor. She bent down and reached for the cloth, her hands trembling as she pulled it back. What she uncovered left her breathless. Nestled within the damp fabric was a small, unusual creature. It had the body of a cat, covered in a soft mix of fur and scales, with delicate limbs that seemed both familiar and alien. Its eyes, still half-closed, were an intense amber, glowing faintly even in the dim light. Emily could feel her heart pounding as she took in the tiny, fragile being before her. She glanced back at the lion, which watched her with a calm, weary expression. "Emily, what are you doing?" The voice belonged to Dr. Andrew Clark, the hospital's resident veterinarian, who had approached cautiously from behind. His face was pale with disbelief. She didn't respond. Her entire focus was on the creature, which seemed to stir slightly under her gaze, as though sensing the warmth of her touch. "We need to help it," Emily said softly, a protective resolve hardening her voice. She could feel the creature's faint pulse beneath her fingertips. Dr. Clark knelt beside her, his eyes widening as he examined the creature. "I've never seen anything like this," he murmured, reaching out to touch its tiny paw. "It's extraordinary." The lion let out a low, contented rumble, almost as if it understood that its mission was accomplished. Then, as quietly as it had arrived, it turned and slumped down onto the floor, exhausted and spent. Emily glanced up at Dr. Clark. "We have to take care of them. Both of them." Dr. Clark nodded, his gaze filled with both wonder and determination. They carefully lifted the tiny creature onto a stretcher, making sure to keep it wrapped in the cloth, while the lion remained lying on the floor, breathing heavily but calm. As they wheeled the stretcher into an examination room, a sense of urgency surged through them. They were in uncharted territory, caring for a creature that defied any classification. The door opened abruptly, and Head of Security, Carl Harrison, stormed in, his face flushed with alarm. "What's going on in here?" he demanded, his voice sharp. Dr. Clark glanced up from examining the creature. "It's complicated, Carl. But we need to help it." Carl's eyes narrowed as he took in the sight of the tiny creature on the stretcher. "That thing, whatever it is, can't stay here. And that lion. Are you both out of your minds?" Emily straightened, her face firm. "This is a hospital, Carl. Our job is to help those who need us, no matter how strange the circumstances." Reluctantly, Carl sighed. "Fine. But this stays under wraps. If word gets out that we have a lion and a Well, whatever that is, there'll be chaos. After he left, Emily and Dr. Clark turned back to their unusual patient. Dr. Clark examined the tiny creature with a sense of reverence, marveling at its unique features. It was unlike any animal he'd ever seen, a blend of mammalian and reptilian traits that shouldn't coexist in nature. It's like someone created this, on purpose, he whispered, his voice tinged with awe. As if to confirm his suspicions, something metallic fell from the folds of the cloth onto the examination table with a faint clink. Emily picked it up, examining it closely. It looked like a small, intricate piece of technology, something far more advanced than a simple tracking device. "What is that?" Emily asked, holding it up to the light. Dr. Clark's brow furrowed as he took the device from her. "I don't know, but it might hold the answers to all of this." Before they could investigate further, a soft chirp escaped from the tiny creature. Emily's heart melted as she gently stroked its head, feeling a strange sense of connection with it. The lion, still lying in the corner of the room, watched them with knowing eyes, as if it understood everything that was happening. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside the hospital, another kind of tempest was brewing, a quiet storm of mystery, wonder, and questions without answers. A sudden knock on the door startled them. Carl reappeared, his face tight with concern. "We've got reporters swarming outside, and I just got word that some unusual individuals are asking questions. They're not media, and they're definitely not local authorities." Emily's heart pounded. She glanced at Dr. Clark, worry darkening her eyes. "Whoever created this creature, they're coming for it." Dr. Clark's face hardened. "We can't let them take it. This little one needs protection, not experimentation." The strange device in Dr. Clark's hand suddenly emitted a soft glow, and a holographic image flickered to life above it. Complex diagrams and codes filled the air, projecting an intricate map of the creature's genetic structure. The technology was far beyond anything they'd ever seen, something out of a science fiction movie. Emily's gaze darted between the hologram and the tiny creature. "This is unbelievable." Dr. Clark nodded, his eyes glued to the projection. "We're looking at something revolutionary." Just then, the lion let out a soft growl, as if reminding them of its presence. Emily moved closer to it, resting her hand on its side. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling a deep gratitude for this noble animal that had brought them an unimaginable gift, and an equally unimaginable burden. Outside, the storm showed no signs of stopping, and Emily knew their night was far from over. The lion's eyes closed, its breathing deep and steady, while the tiny creature nestled closer to Emily's warmth, its soft chirps filling the room with a strange, comforting sound. As the rain poured down and the night stretched on, Emily and Dr. Clark knew they had crossed into a world beyond their understanding, a world where compassion, courage, and mystery were their only guides. And they silently vowed to protect their strange, extraordinary patient, no matter what challenges awaited them.